Hello. Hi. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ego, and today we're going to be talking about books, specifically books for the holiday. Not specifically Christmas, but books that are holiday themed and centered around the month of December. And in today's video, I have 6.5 books that I'm going to be recommending. These are books that I have read over the holidays in the past 4 to 5 years. These are some of the best books that I recommend, really love. And I'm not really open to taking criticisms of. If you don't like them, if you've read them and you haven't liked them in the past, feel free to share why you didn't like it, but you won't be changing my mind. I had a delicious time reading these books, and I'm going to be sharing them with you today, just in case you're looking for something nice, heartwarming, maybe romantic, maybe dramatic, but definitely holiday themed. I have some good recommendations for you. Let's get into it. The first book on my list is One Day in December by Josie Silver. And I believe a couple of weeks ago, I actually talked about this book on this channel as one of the books that got me back into reading after I had gone years without reading because I was in school. I read this in 2018 and it still holds up today. It is a holiday romance that spans about a decade. It follows two people who have a very quick, very fleeting encounter on a bus one day in December, and our main female character, Laurie, sees this man, has such a strong connection with him that she believes him to be her soulmate, and she goes back and she tells her roommate and best friend about this person that she's met, who she believes she absolutely is supposed to spend her life with, but they didn't exchange numbers, so they didn't even know when or if they would ever see each other again. It was a very passing encounter, and then months later they are thrown back into each other's path. Fate brings them back together again, except now he is her roommate Sarah's boyfriend, and the story unfolds over the next decade between her best friend Jack, and her partner. It's a little dramatic. It's very will they, won't they, because you see these two people yearning for each other and now have to be in each other's lives, but not in the way that they ideally would want to. And there's love, there's friendship, there's heartbreak, and lots of very, very, very complicated feelings. I loved this book so much. I enjoyed it. I recommend it always, always, always as a holiday read. The next book on my list is In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren, and I call it my Christmas Groundhog Day read because that's kind of what it's about. It follows our main female character, May, and she's very dissatisfied with her life, but it's the holidays and she has to go with her family, her dad, her mom, and her brother on their annual Christmas vacation that they celebrate with their close family friends. And of the close family friends, the oldest brother in the other family, Andrew, is someone that she has loved. She has had a childhood crush on. They're adults now, but she has loved him since before she could remember. But because she's also navigating all these feelings and all these things, she's so dissatisfied with her life, her career choices, she doesn't know what the next year is going to look like for her. She has a lot going on. So while she's kind of battling those feelings with the universe, she throws a prayer out there asking the universe to show her what exactly will make her happy. And she gets stuck in a time loop where she's living the same day at the cabin with everybody over and over and over again. And every time she dies or something happens, she wakes back up on the plane, I think, or in the car on their way to the cabin. It's really good. It is really Christina Lauren at one of their best work. It is so swoon worthy. It's heartwarming, and it's also very reflective, I think, because you learn a lot of lessons as May is learning lessons about things in her life that she maybe isn't being fully appreciative or she's kind of had around for such a long time. She's beginning to take for granted. The gift of perspective is given to her in this book, and you kind of go on that journey with her. It's so sweet. It's also very, very, very romantic. I love it. Third on my list is Always in December by Emily Stone. I'm going to do to you something that I 80% wish someone had done for me before I read this book, which is trigger warning. One of the characters dies in the end. Now, I'm the kind of person who doesn't mind spoilers in some situations. I can really go either way. And even though it was a little crushing crushing to find out that one of them dies in the end. I think the reason why it was so jarring for me the first time I read it was because I didn't read anything about it. I mean, I rarely do. I rarely read like in-depth reviews about books before I go into it. I go off of the synopsis, but maybe I'm a little masochistic because I think I enjoyed the experience of the book more not knowing. So if that is a spoiler that you didn't like, I'm sorry that I just spoiled it for you. I just know that for everybody else that I've recommended this book to, they have needed that trigger warning because it does come out of nowhere. It is, oh my God, so good. It is a romance that follows two strangers, two people who meet faithfully at the beginning of the book, and then they get disconnected, and over time during the holidays keep running into each other by chance, but they do have all these like recurring themes, you know, of heartbreak and love and loss that brings them together like over the years that they get to know each other and are apart. So does it have a little bit of a heart-wrenching ending? Yes. Is it worth it? I think so. I truly think so. And the reason why I said like I set myself up is it literally said, the tagline, which I didn't pay attention to first time I read the book, is that this is a chance encounter during the holiday season that brings two people together and then quickly tears them apart. But fate intervenes again in this romantic debut novel in the tradition of Me Before You. So I think it is fair warning that the author said it is in the style of Me Before You, because then I wouldn't have been as shocked. Because if you know anything about Me Before You, then you know how that story ends. And you know that it's a worthwhile journey. And you know, at the end of the day, I like a romance, even a tearjerker. I don't mind it. It's just, you know, it's really sad. But I highly recommend. The fourth book is Hoops Holiday. This is a very short novella set in Kennedy Ryan's Hoop series. I talked about one of the books on one of my videos before. It's Long Shot, Hoop Shot, and Block Shot. And this novella is two things. It takes two sub-characters in the series, Avery and Decker, that kind of show up across the three books, and they're not together at the beginning of the first book, but then they're together towards the end of the third book. So this answers the question of how they get together. It's these two characters who are insanely attracted to each other. It's a romance. And they meet 10 years, like right at the beginning of the basketballer's career. And she's a reporter / sports investigative journalist. And he makes a terrible impression, but they're still attracted to each other. So then Kennedy Ryan like takes us like 10 years back into our time, and we see them now. 10 years has passed between them. They're at different stages in their careers. They're very different people. Their lives, their careers, their interpersonal relationships have caused them to be slightly different people, but you know, still the same in the ways that matters to their relationship moving forward. And so sure, it happens over the holidays. It's romantic, it's heartwarming. Because it's part of the Hoops universe, it still incorporates basketball, and you see a lot of the other characters like August and Iris show up. And there's also an epilogue in this book that leads to the third book of the Hoops universe series. So if that's something that you maybe have on your TBR, you should add this to it. It really does bring the whole story together, but it's also a standalone. It can be read as a standalone. Absolutely enjoyed it. Then there's book number 5, Amor Actually. This is an anthology of 9 stories. There are 9 stories by different authors, and it's inspired by Love Actually. You know how like in Love Actually, all the stories kind of have people who know each other. Like there's certain degrees of separation between at least one person in one story and the other. That's how this is written, because everyone in the story at the end of the day ends up at the same Christmas Eve party. And the book is also very culturally rich. All the authors are Latinx authors. So I love the fact that the authors are very clearly celebrating their own like cultural holiday traditions in the book and in their stories separately. It's funny, some of the stories are funnier than others. Some of the stories are more romantic than others. Some of the stories are spicier than others, but they're all really heartfelt, very loving, and very intent on capturing that magic of the season, of like the Christmas holiday season. Actually, I remember in 2022 when I read this may have been the only holiday themed book that I read, but it felt like I read a lot more because technically I did, because they're all in one book. Like I said, depending on your personal preference, there are some stories that you like more than others. There's one that I remember really liking, and it's All I Want for Noche Buena, where the main character Marisol is in Chicago. She's navigating very complex relationships with her family, but for the first time she's not celebrating. She doesn't have the opportunity to celebrate Christmas with her family, so she's kind of leaning on her childhood friend for emotional support, you know, and all the feelings that come up during the holiday, and the friendship blossoms into, you know, so much more. It's very sweet. It's literally like 9 very sweet, very heartfelt romantic stories, but also causes you to kind of, you know, look outside of yourself a little bit each time. So I highly recommend. I think it's very well done, and how like everything comes together in the end with all the characters together at the party. I thought that was really good. Following a similar theme, the next book is Christmas Days by Jeanette Winterson. This this is also an anthology, but it's an anthology by one author. And I actually can't remember how many stories are in this one. I think counted 12. It literally says 12 stories and 12 feasts for 12 days. So yeah, it's 12. This was a book club pick last year for my book club at work. And I didn't expect to like it as much as I did because I had never heard anything about the author. I also found it funny that her last name is Wintersink. I'm like, that is such an Americanized like holiday name. So her being like a holiday themed author is funny to me. And I specifically love what she does with this book, where after each story, she shares a holiday recipe for a meal or a snack. So each story is paired with a recipe. And if you like to cook, which I do not really, I think you would love this. Absolutely. And the collection of stories are really charming, but they're more whimsical and magical. She really leans into that childlike sense of wonder. And there are stories that are generally warming and charming, but then there are some that were really spooky. I didn't expect some of the stories to be as spooky as they were. I didn't expect to be encountering like ghosts in cottages on a regular basis, but it's not horrific. It's not horror. I'm glad that I got to read it because I don't think this is something I would have gravitated to on my own. And I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it, because based off of how my explore pages and my FYPs are curated, I don't think this would have popped up for me if it wasn't recommended by the book club. I'll give you an example of a spooky story. One of the stories is called The Mistletoe Bride, and it's a haunting and very romantic story that's set in a really old house about a bride who mysteriously disappears on her wedding day during a game of hide and seek. Why you would be playing hide and seek on your wedding day is beyond me. But when the story actually begins, it's years later after her disappearance, and it's said that she haunts the house. So the story kind of focuses on the mystery of her disappearance and the impact that it's had on the family and the generations after. But of course, because it's holiday themed, they're navigating lots of feelings around loss, love, and reconnecting and finding your way back to your loved ones as you're searching for answers. It's really sweet. It's really well done. I recommend it. And that's it for my list of book recs. Actually, the only other thing I will add is a classic. If you haven't read Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It is, in fact, timeless. And I know it's been adapted a lot into different types of movies, animated movies and such, and TV shows and TV series. And it really is that good. Sometimes, until I go back and reread it, I forget that it actually is a very, very short, like it's a novella. It's not even like a full, but I mean, it is a full book, but it's not a huge read. So if you haven't read it, I think it's one of those books that is really good and you can read in like a day or two. If you don't know anything about it, it follows Scrooge, the character Ebenezer Scrooge, who is a very jaded, very miserable, cold-hearted man who despises Christmas. He's like the Grinch times 1,000. And on Christmas Eve, he's visited by the ghost of his former business partner, Mr. Marley, and three spirits, the ghost of the past, the present, and the future. And they take him to all these different time periods of his life, past, present, and future. And on those visits, he is shown the consequences of his actions, of his greed, of the state of his heart, and the impact that it has, not just on his own life, but on the lives of others. And I love it. A Christmas Carol is a story in, love and generosity and the power of compassion and community and kindness and perspective, and it ultimately leads to Scrooge's redemption and a change of heart, not just for the season, but life in general. It's really good. Most of my content in December are going to be vlogs, a lot of reading vlogs, because I do still have some books on my TBR that I made at the beginning of the year. So I'm going to try to close that gap and go through some of the books that I haven't read because I've been interrupted by other books. And yeah, we'll talk more. But in the meantime, I hope you take care of yourself. I hope you are loved. I hope you feel loved. I hope you share love. I hope you take care of yourself in this season. I'm sending you all my love and all the best. Happy reading. Mwah.